Welcome to Justice Insight Cam. We showcase raw bodycam recordings of actual law enforcement stops. Beyond the dramatic footage, we carefully interpret the law, the factual reality, and the profound lessons hidden in plain sight. Let's focus on the pursuit of justice.
Counsel, stop. This clause, spousal consent, was never executed.
Your Honor, the intent...
Intent is not a substitute for statutory requirements.
Counsel, stop. The judge's voice isn't loud. It's worse than loud. It's precise. In a family courtroom that smells like paper and disinfectant, a thick surrogacy contract sits open on the lectern like a body on a table. Tabs, highlights, sticky notes, signatures in blue ink. On the front row, a woman clutches a newborn hat in both hands. Tiny, pale yellow, still folded the way it came from the hospital gift shop. She isn't wearing it. She's holding it like proof that the baby exists. Across the aisle, another woman stares at the floor, one palm pressed to her chest, breathing shallow. And at counsel table, the judge taps one line on page 32. "Here," she says. She looks up. "This clause, spousal consent and waiver, was never executed." A beat. And because it was never executed, this agreement is not enforceable in this jurisdiction. The courtroom stops breathing. The intended parent's attorney begins to speak. "Your Honor, you want the intent?" The judge raises a hand. "Intent," she says, "is not a substitute for statutory requirements." She flips the page again. "So here is what will happen," she continues. "Until parentage is properly established, custody remains with the legal parent." The woman holding the little hat goes pale. "Legal parent?" she whispers. The judge's gaze stays steady. "The birth mother," she says. And in that moment, a single forgotten clause, one missing signature, decides who holds the baby when the court day ends. To protect privacy, names, locations, and some details are reconstructed. This is a fictionalized composite inspired by patterns that can appear in complex surrogacy disputes and emergency family court motions. Jenna Caldwell had spent 9 years learning to live inside waiting for test results, waiting for phone calls, waiting for a nurse to say, "We have good news." And for 9 years, the news never stayed good. There were the early tries, hopeful months, and cheap pregnancy tests lined up like little white tombstones in the bathroom drawer. Then the specialists, the appointments where doctors spoke kindly while saying brutal things, diminished ovarian reserve, a uterus that couldn't safely carry, an option list that shrank every time Jenna tried to feel optimistic. Her husband, Marcus, did what supportive husbands do in stories. He held her hand, said they'd be okay, promised they'd find a way. But real support is quieter. Real support is sitting in parking lots after appointments because you don't know how to drive when your chest feels hollow. Real support is learning how to talk about babies when every baby shower feels like a bruise. Marcus and Jenna didn't want a perfect family. They wanted a simple one. A child's laugh in their living room, a backpack by the door, and footsteps upstairs. And when a doctor finally said, "Surrogacy is your clearest path," Jenna heard it like someone had opened a door. Not a guarantee, a door. They stepped through. The agency had a name that sounded gentle. Everkind Family Paths. A bright office, soft chairs, photos on the walls of smiling couples holding babies under words like miracle and journey. The coordinator, a woman named Brianna, spoke in a voice that could sell hope without sounding like a salesperson. "We match carefully," she promised. "Medical screening, psychological screening, legal protections. Everyone has independent counsel." Independent counsel, legal protections. Words that made Jenna breathe for the first time in a long time. The surrogate they were matched with was Tessa Ford, 32, 2 kids of her own, a steady job, a smile that felt sincere on video calls. "I loved being pregnant," Tessa said during their first meeting. "I know that sounds strange, but I did. And I know what it's like to want something that badly. I want to help." Jenna fought the urge to cry on camera. Marcus asked practical questions: work schedule, support system, what her kids thought. Tessa answered like someone who had thought through every angle. "My family knows," she said. "My mom is nearby, my friends. I'm stable." Then, casually, almost as an afterthought, Tessa said one line that should have made the room go quiet. "I'm separated," she added, "or still legally married, but we've been apart a while." Brianna nodded, smiling like it was just a checkbox. "No problem," she said. "We've handled that before." Handled, another comforting word. Jenna didn't know that handled sometimes means assumed. The contract process began like a ritual. Emails, red lines, Zoom calls with attorneys, medical consent forms, insurance riders, escrow accounts. The intended parents hired a surrogacy attorney named Leanne Cross, sharp, calm, known for building clean agreements. Tessa was assigned independent counsel through the agency, a local family lawyer named Grant Whitaker. On paper, it looked perfect. Everyone had representation. Everyone had meetings. Everyone signed. But contracts don't fail because nobody cares. They fail because one detail is treated like a detail. In the first draft, there was a section titled Spousal Consent and Waiver of Parentage Presumptions. It required Tessa's husband, Evan Ford, to sign. It notarized, acknowledging the surrogacy, waiving presumed parental rights, and consenting to the intended parent's parentage petition. Leanne flagged it. "Mandatory," she told Marcus and Jenna. "If she's married, he signs. Full stop." Brianna from the agency echoed it. "We'll coordinate," she said. "We have forms." Tessa nodded. "I can get him to sign," she said. "We're separated, but he's not unreasonable." Everyone moved forward because everyone wanted forward. In the surrogacy contract went through revisions, compensation schedules, bed rest clauses, medical decision frameworks, travel restrictions, confidentiality, dispute resolution. And then, 1 week before final signing, a new version of the contract was circulated. It had cleaner formatting, updated exhibits, a final watermark, and on page 32, the spousal consent section wasn't there. Not crossed out, not renegotiated. Just gone. A template merge error. A quiet deletion that nobody noticed because everyone was staring at the big lines. Costs, dates, doctors, embryo transfer schedule. They signed, Tessa signed, Marcus signed, Jenna signed, 2 witnesses signed, a notary stamped. The paper looked official, and official paper makes people believe they're safe. The embryo transfer happened in early spring, a clinic room that smelled like sterile plastic, Tessa lying under a thin blanket, a doctor speaking in calm, unpracticed tones, Jenna holding Marcus's hand so tightly her fingers ached. The embryo was created from Marcus's sperm and a donor egg. Jenna had chosen the donor profile with trembling care, brown hair, hazel eyes, a love of books. She told herself genetics didn't matter. And then, in quiet moments, she admitted it mattered a little. She wanted something, anything, that felt connected. 2 weeks later, the pregnancy test was positive. Jenna cried in her car. Marcus cried in the kitchen. Tessa texted a simple message. It worked. 3 words that felt like a life. It worked. The pregnancy moved in chapters. The first ultrasound, a flicker of a heartbeat on a screen. The second trimester when nausea eased and the baby became more than a test. Tessa sending bump photos with little jokes. Jenna sending thank you messages. that sometimes went unanswered because gratitude can't fill the emptiness of not carrying your own child. Marcus building the nursery, E painting walls a soft green, assembling a crib at midnight like it was a sacred act, and in the background a slow pressure grew. Not about the pregnancy, about the marriage Tessa had mentioned so casually, because separated is not a legal status. Separated is a story, and the law doesn't care about stories. The law cares about signatures. At 24 weeks, Tessa stopped replying as quickly, not ghosting, just slower. Then she sent a message. Evan moved back in. Yes, Jenna stared at her phone. Moved back in. Marcus asked, "Is that a problem?" Jenna didn't know. She told herself it shouldn't be. Then she remembered Leanne's words. If she's married, he signs. Full stop. Marcus called Leanne. Leanne's response was immediate. "Has he signed?" she asked. Marcus hesitated. "We thought it was in the contract," he said. Leanne went quiet. "Send me the executed copy," she said. When she opened it, she saw what nobody else had seen. In the missing section, the missing signature, the missing protection. Her voice on the call turned low. "This is a problem," she said. "How big?" Jenna asked, already feeling nausea in her throat. "Big enough," Leanne said, "that if Evan wants to make this difficult, he can." Jenna's chest tightened. "But it's not his baby," she said. Leanne didn't soften. "Biology and parentage are not always the same thing at birth," she said. "If she's married, there can be a presumption. And without a signed waiver, the hospital may list him as the father automatically." Marcus's jaw clenched. "So we just get him to sign," he said. "Yes," Leanne replied. "Now. Before the 3rd trimester, before the birth, before we're in emergency court." Emergency court. Jenna heard the phrase like a threat. Tessa agreed to a meeting, a coffee shop with neutral lighting and too much air conditioning. Marcus and Jenna sat on one side of the table. Tessa sat on the other, in hands wrapped around a paper cup she barely touched. She looked tired, not physically, emotionally. "We need Evan to sign a waiver," Leanne said, direct. Tessa nodded. "I know," she said. "I told him." "And?" Marcus asked. Tessa exhaled. "He says he didn't agree to this," she admitted. "He says nobody asked him." Jenna swallowed. "But you were separated," Jenna said. Tessa's eyes flicked up. "Separated doesn't mean erased," she said quietly. It's that sentence landed heavier than it should have, because it wasn't defensive. It was honest. Leanne slid a paper across the table. "Acknowledgement," she said. "He signs. Notarized. That's it." Tessa stared at it, then looked away. "I'll try again," she said. Jenna forced her voice to stay calm. "Try," she repeated. "Or will." Tessa's cheeks flushed. "I said I'll try," she snapped. Then she softened. "I'm sorry," she said. "I'm dealing with things." Jenna nodded, and even though inside something brittle cracked, because Jenna realized she was building her motherhood on someone else's marriage, and marriages, even friendly ones, can be weapons when money and power enter. Evan refused to sign, not loudly, not in an email that could be subpoenaed. He refused in silence. He simply didn't show up. Then he sent one message to Tessa. "If you want me to sign, you and I need to talk about what's in it for me." It wasn't a request. It was leverage. Tessa showed Leanne the message with shaking hands. Leanne's face hardened. "Extortion is not a negotiating position," she said. Marcus leaned forward. "How much?" he asked, before Jenna could stop him. Leanne cut in. "No," she said. "We do not pay him. If we pay him, we create a new problem." Jenna's voice came out thin. "So what do we do?" she asked. Leanne stared at the calendar. "We file for a parentage order," she said. "We push the court pre-birth." We force the issue legally. Marcus's jaw clenched. And if the court says no? Leanne held his gaze. Then we prepare for chaos at the hospital, she said. The pre-birth parentage petition went in at 30 weeks. A thick filing, affidavits, medical declarations, intent statements, the surrogacy agreement, and a glaring absence. No spousal waiver. The clerk's office accepted the paperwork, but the judge assigned to the parentage calendar denied the petition without a hearing. Is one line, petition incomplete, statutory prerequisites not satisfied. Jenna read that line and felt the floor shift. Incomplete, not satisfied. Words that shouldn't be able to decide motherhood, but did. Leanne called them that night. We can refile, she said. We can try another judge, but the gap is the gap. We need Evan's signature or we need to be ready to litigate parentage after birth. After birth. That phrase was the nightmare. Because after birth, there is a baby. And a baby with lungs and a heartbeat and needs. A baby who can't be paused while adults fight. Tessa went into labor early, 36 weeks. A sudden spike in blood pressure, headache, swelling. The doctor said the word that turns birth into emergency. Preeclampsia. Jenna and Marcus drove to the hospital at 2:13 a.m., tires screaming once as Marcus turned too fast into the parking garage. They ran through a lobby that smelled like antiseptic and sleep. And they found Tessa in a room surrounded by monitors. Beep, beep, beep. Her face was pale. Her hands trembled. She looked at Jenna and tried to smile. I'm okay, she whispered. Jenna didn't know whether to say thank you or I'm sorry. A nurse walked in with a clipboard. Okay, she said. We need to confirm birth certificate information. Who's the father? Marcus stepped forward. I am, he said. The nurse looked at Tessa. And your husband? She asked. Tessa's eyes darted. We're separated, she said. The nurse's face stayed neutral, trained. Legally married? She asked. Tessa swallowed. Yes, she admitted. The nurse nodded. Then we need him on the paperwork unless you have a court order stating otherwise, she said. Marcus's stomach dropped. Jenna's mouth went dry. Leanne's warning echoed in Jenna's head. Chaos at the hospital. This was it. The birth was fast and not beautiful. An emergency C-section under harsh lights. A curtain. A doctor's voice calling out numbers. Tessa crying softly. Marcus and Jenna waiting in a hallway with their backs against a wall, hands clasped, hearing muffled sounds they couldn't interpret. At 4:22 a.m., a nurse walked out. It's a boy, she said. Jenna's knees almost buckled. The nurse continued. He's small. He's going to the NICU for observation. NICU. Another word that turns joy into fear. Jenna nodded. Can we see him? She asked. The nurse hesitated. So are you on the chart as parents? She asked. Marcus's voice sharpened. We're the intended parents, he said. We have a contract. The nurse's expression softened with sympathy that didn't solve anything. Without a court order, she said, we can't release the baby or grant full parental access. Risk management will need to review. Risk management. The bureaucracy of fear. Jenna felt something inside her fracture, not because the nurse was cruel, because the nurse was correct. At 6:10 a.m., Evan Ford arrived, not rushing, not frantic, walking with the calm of a man who knows he has leverage. He wore jeans and a hoodie. He looked more annoyed than worried. He walked straight to the nurse's station and asked for Tessa. He glanced at Marcus and Jenna, as if they were strangers. Then he said the sentence that turned the air cold. I'm her husband, he announced. I'm the father on paper. Jenna's vision narrowed. Marcus stepped forward. You're not the father, Marcus said. Evan shrugged. That's not what the law says until you prove it, he replied. Jenna's hands shook. Tessa doesn't want you involved, she said. Evan looked at her. "You're not involved either," he said, not loud, just sharp. And in that moment, Jenna understood what a forgotten clause really is. It's not missing ink, it's missing power. Tessa, recovering, asked to see Jenna. She looked exhausted, tears streaking through the corners of her eyes. "I'm sorry," she whispered. Jenna sat beside her bed. "Did you tell him to come?" Jenna asked. Tessa shook her head. "He saw the hospital charge on our insurance portal," she admitted. "He called. He said he had rights." Jenna's voice broke. "I can't even hold him," she said. Tessa's eyes filled. "I didn't want this," she whispered. Jenna believed her, and still, belief didn't fix the law. By noon, the case was in emergency court. Leanne Cross filed a motion for immediate parentage recognition and an emergency order granting Marcus and Jenna custody. Evan's attorney filed a response. Tessa's attorney filed another. 3 narratives collided over one infant in a NICU bassinet. The judge assigned, Judge Waverly Stein, had seen custody fights over divorces, over addiction, over lies. Surrogacy cases were rarer, but when they happened, they were explosive, because the law is always behind the science. The emergency hearing began the next morning. That's where our story started. The contract on the lectern, the missing clause, the line that decided the day. Spousal consent and waiver was never executed, Judge Stein said. Leanne tried to argue, "Your Honor, the party's intent is clear. Ms. Ford never intended to parent. Mr. Ford is not genetically related. The child was conceived with Mr. Caldwell's sperm. We can confirm with DNA within 48 hours. The judge nodded. I hear you," she said. Then she turned to Evan. "Mr. Ford," she asked, "did you sign any waiver?" Evan didn't blink. "No," he said. "Did you consent to this surrogacy?" Evan shrugged. "No," he repeated. Judge Stein looked at Tessa. "Ms. Ford," she asked, "did you disclose you were legally married?" Tessa's voice shook. "Yes," she said, "from the beginning." Judge Stein nodded. "And yet," she said, tapping the contract, this agreement was executed without the statutorily required spousal consent." She looked at Leanne. "I cannot pretend that doesn't matter," she said. Then she said the sentence that broke Jenna's knees inside. "Until parentage is established, the legal parent is the birth mother," the judge ruled. "And the marital presumption gives Mr. Ford standing until rebutted." Standing. A legal word that becomes a physical wall. Judge Stein continued. "I am ordering the child remain in the hospital under protective hold pending paternity testing and further hearing," she said. "Ms. Ford may visit, Mr. Caldwell may visit, Miss Caldwell may visit as a support person for Mr. Caldwell pending verification." Support person. Jenna felt the word like a slap. She wasn't a support person. She was the mother in her heart, but hearts don't sign birth certificates. A clause does. For the next 48 hours, Jenna lived in the NICU. Not legally, physically, sitting in a chair that was never comfortable, listening to monitor beeps, watching nurses adjust tubes, watching Tessa hold the baby with trembling hands, while Jenna stood nearby like a visitor. Marcus tried to be strong. He tried to be the anchor, but Jenna saw his hands shake when he signed the paternity testing consent, saw his jaw lock when Evan walked into the NICU like he belonged. Evan didn't touch the baby. He didn't need to. He stood there, the arms crossed, watching the room, watching Marcus, watching Jenna, watching Tessa, a man collecting leverage without leaving fingerprints. The DNA test came back. Marcus was the biological father. Evan was not. A truth that should have ended the story. But law is not always fast. Evan's attorney argued the marital presumption still required a court order to rebut. "That's why we have hearings," he said. "Hearings. while a newborn grew, while Jenna's milk never came because her body hadn't carried, while her arms stayed empty anyway. Judge Stein issued an order rebutting Evan's presumption and naming Marcus as the legal father. Then she looked at Jenna. "Ms. Caldwell," she said, "you are not genetically related, and you do not have an enforceable pre-birth order. At this time, you do not have legal parentage." Jenna's mouth opened. No sound came. Marcus's attorney, Leanne, spoke quickly. "Your Honor, Ms. Caldwell is the intended mother. She has been part of this agreement from day one." Judge Stein held up a hand. "Intent matters," she said, "but intent must be channeled through proper legal mechanisms. The court will consider a step-parent adoption or parentage petition. But today, I can only rule on the law in front of me. In front of her, a contract with a missing clause, a baby with a heartbeat, a mother without a legal label. That night, Marcus and Jenna fought for the first time in months, not about blame, about pain. Marcus slammed a cabinet door in their kitchen and immediately regretted it. Jenna sat at the table, staring at a tiny onesie she had washed 3 times, like washing could make reality softer. "This is because of paperwork," Jenna whispered. Marcus's voice broke. "It's because we trusted people to handle it," he said. Jenna's eyes flashed. "They said it was handled," she snapped. Marcus's shoulders sagged. "I know," he said. "I know." Then Jenna said the thing she hadn't been able to say. "What if she keeps him?" Marcus froze. "Tessa?" he asked. Jenna nodded. "She carried him," Jenna said. "She's legal. What if she decides she can't give him up?" Marcus opened his mouth, then closed it, because the fear was not irrational. In the NICU, Jenna had watched Tessa's face when she held the baby. Not greed, not manipulation. Something older. Bond. Oh, and bonds don't read contracts. Tessa didn't want to keep the baby. Not at first. She had signed up to help. She had told herself she could separate emotion from outcome. But postpartum hormones don't care what you told yourself. The baby's smell, his warmth, the way he curled into her chest, those things rewired her body. Evan saw it, and Evan used it. He leaned into Tessa's room one night when Jenna wasn't there. "You don't have to hand him over," he murmured. Tessa's eyes snapped up. "Yes, I do," she whispered. "I promised." Evan shrugged. "You promised them," he said. "You didn't promise me, and you didn't promise the court. You know what the judge said. You're the legal parent." Tessa's hands trembled. "Stop," she hissed. Evan's voice stayed soft. "Think about your kids," he said. "Think about money. Think about how you've been treated." Tessa stared at him. "You're not doing this for me," she said. Evan smiled without warmth. "I'm doing it because they thought they could cut me out," he replied. And there it was. Not concern, not morality, revenge. A forgotten clause had given revenge a legal handle. The next hearing was not quiet. It was crowded. The NICU social worker testified about the baby's health and discharge timeline. A psychologist testified about surrogacy emotional dynamics. Leanne Cross argued that the intended parents had acted in good faith and that Tessa had no genetic connection. Evan's attorney argued that the agreement was invalid and that Tessa's rights could not be erased by intent. Tessa's attorney argued something in between. "She does not seek to keep the child permanently," Grant Whitaker said, "but she seeks protection from coercion and recognition of what she has been through." Protection, recognition. The judge listened, then she asked the question that mattered. "Ms. Ford," Judge Stein said, "what do you want?" Tessa's eyes filled. I want them to have him," she whispered. Jenna exhaled a sound that was half relief, half sob. Tessa continued. "But I also want this to stop. she said, voice shaking. "The pressure, the threats. I didn't know it could turn into this." Judge Stein nodded slowly. Then she said the line that made everyone understand the court's position. "This child cannot be treated as a contract dispute," she said. "He is not an exhibit. He is a person. Arnie and I will not release him into chaos." She ordered a temporary custody arrangement. Marcus, as biological father, would have primary physical custody upon discharge. Tessa would have scheduled visitation for a limited transition period. Jenna would be allowed to participate in caretaking, but remained, legally, a non-parent until an adoption or parentage judgment. Evan would have no rights after the presumption was rebutted, and the judge issued an order, sharp, explicit, prohibiting Evan from contacting Tessa about the child. It was not a victory, it was a triage, a judge putting her hand on a bleeding wound. When the baby was finally discharged, Jenna sat in the hospital parking lot with Marcus and stared at the car seat in the back. The baby was inside, breathing, small, real, and Jenna felt a wave of emotion so intense she couldn't tell if it was joy or grief. Because she was taking the baby home, but she still wasn't his mother in the eyes of the law. The NICU nurse handed Marcus a folder. "Pediatrician schedule," she said, "medication instructions, and, this is important, documentation of custody orders. Keep it with you." Custody orders. Jenna held the folder like it was a fragile shield, a shield she shouldn't need. The months that followed were not the warm montage Jenna had imagined. They were court dates, home studies, or background checks. Parenting classes required not because Jenna wasn't capable, but because procedure demands boxes be checked. Evan violated the no-contact order once and got a warning that included the word contempt. He stopped, not because he grew a conscience, because he feared jail. Everkind Family Paths, the agency, began to panic. Their internal emails, later produced in Discovery, showed staff realizing the missing clause wasn't a misunderstanding. It was an error, a template mistake, a failure to follow checklist. Jenna didn't care about their panic. She cared about nights when the baby cried, and she wondered if the law could take him away from her simply because her name wasn't on a certificate. Marcus tried to reassure her. "He's ours," he whispered, but Jenna's fear wasn't emotional. It was legal, and legal fear sits deeper because it can actually happen. In the final hearing, Judge Stein did not preach. She didn't need to. She issued findings. She noted that Marcus was the biological father. She noted that Tessa had complied with the intent of the arrangement. She noted that the missing spousal waiver had created a legal vacuum that endangered everyone. And then she addressed Jenna. "Ms. Caldwell," she said, "this court recognizes the reality that you have acted as a parent from the beginning of this child's life. The procedural failures are not yours." Jenna's throat tightened. The judge continued. "Your petition for step-parent adoption is granted," she ruled. Granted, one word, 2 syllables. And Jenna felt her body release something it had been holding since the night the cuffs, no, the handcuffs of law, closed around her identity. The judge signed, ink on paper, a new birth certificate ordered, a legal motherhood created not by biology, not by belly, but by the court's recognition of what was true. Then the judge looked up. "And let the record reflect," she said. "Yeah, that this case was made exponentially harder by a preventable omission." Preventable, a word that stung everyone in the room for different reasons. Everkind's representatives stared at the floor. Leanne Cross looked furious. Tessa wiped tears. Marcus squeezed Jenna's hand. And Jenna, for the first time in months, felt something like stability. Outside the courthouse, reporters asked the question people always ask when law and family collide. Do you feel like you won?" Jenna stared at the microphone. "Win. What a strange word. She thought of Tessa's blood pressure monitor, the NICU, the baby's tiny chest rising and falling, the word support person, the nights she'd held her breath waiting for a judge to decide whether she counted. "I feel like we survived," Jenna said. Then she looked directly at the camera. "And I feel like a single missing clause almost took my child from me," she added. Because that's the truth of this story. It isn't that surrogacy is evil. It isn't that people are always dishonest. It's that modern families are built with paperwork, and paperwork is only as strong as the line you forget to read. The clause everyone missed wasn't dramatic. It wasn't poetic. It was a short section that required one signature, one notarized waiver, one acknowledgement that would have prevented a hospital from writing the wrong name. In one paragraph that would have stopped a spouse from weaponizing the presumption. One detail that would have kept a newborn from becoming a case number. So here's the question that lingers, quiet, uncomfortable, and very real. When the thing you want most is finally within reach, how carefully do you read the pages that claim to protect it? Because Marcus and Jenna did everything right, except assume someone else had done the last, boring step. And the court showed them what happens when boring steps go missing. A judge doesn't hear your dreams. A judge hears what's on paper. And in this case, one forgotten clause decided who got to hold the baby, until the law finally caught up with the truth.
Thank you for watching today's analysis. If you found this information valuable, please like, share, and subscribe to Justice Insight Cam. Stay vigilant, stay secure, and join us for our next detailed report.